It's a Game 4 rout for the Atlanta Hawks, who take a 3-1 series lead. Trae Young with 27 points. He had 9 assists along the way as well, as the Hawks took over in the second half and dominated, leading by as many as 26. More offensive struggles for the New York Knicks, who seem undermanned on that end of the floor. Welcome in. It's Playoff Central Live here with Coach Lloyd Pierce, not Coach. Coach Lloyd Pierce, Carlos Boozer, I'm Matt Weiner. Good to have you with us. You want to talk about the Hawks offense or the Knicks offense and their struggles?
Well, I think the story.
Both are factors.
Yeah, I think the story really is where is the Knicks offense?
Right.
I thought New York did as much as they could defensively to keep themselves in the game in the first half, and really couldn't capitalize on trying to take a lead into halftime. And then that second half for Atlanta, their offense was tremendous. There was more willing ball movement by Trae, by Bogey, and they made their shots. And so we're continuing to see the New York Knicks struggle in a lot of ways. They know they're going to be a crowd around Julius Randle at all times, but they don't have the personnel right now or the production to really take advantage of that crowd.
They shot 42%, speaking of the Knicks, in this game, and honestly, that's a little bit of a win,
right,
based on where they've been so far this season. But the Hawks came out in the third quarter on a 15-5 run, and I wondered to myself, how many of those do the Knicks have in them in this series? How many 12-2 spurts? How many 15-5 runs can the Knicks realistically produce to keep up?
Yeah, we talked about that. If they get down by 10, 12, it might as well be 25.
Right.
Because they're having a hard time putting the ball in the basket. They don't have a lot of spurts, like you said, Matt, where they come out and they hit 2 or 3 threes in a row, or they get, 4 or 5. They're struggling to score. Conversely, the Hawks are cooking. Everybody's getting a little bit of that ice tray cooking right now. He's spreading it around. Gallinari off the bench with 20-plus points. A big double-double again from Capella. Collins has 20 points. Everybody's eating, and then obviously Trae does a great job of scoring himself. So it's difficult for the Knicks to come back into a game once they get down, and they got down big in the second half.
Absolutely. Hawks recorded 24 assists, just 10 turnovers. It was all a turnover game for both teams. Knocked down 15 of their 39 threes. So in terms of points, they're plus 18 from the three-point line. They're plus 7 from the free throw line. Really beat the Knicks in just about every way you could. And then things got a little testy, as you would expect 4 games into a series. A fair amount of extracurricular stuff there down the stretch, with a flagrant foul on Kevin Huerter. And then you saw Danilo Gallinari get into it with Reggie Bullock, who charged the Hawks bench. He was issued a technical foul, and then Julius Randle, sticking up for him, got a flagrant foul against Gallo. What does that do in terms of the tone? I know part of that's just the way things happen in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think one thing we know for sure is Game 5 in New York in the Garden. That crowd, the atmosphere will be rocking. But what we saw at the end of today's game was just frustration. If they brought that physicality without, just the non-basketball side of it, I think that's what they're going to need, especially playing in Game 5 in New York in a do-or-die game. But there's a lot of frustration settling in for New York, and we all understand that. They have to play better. And really, everything aside, they have to play better, they have to shoot better, and they have to find production from other guys.
Yeah, we'll say, Coach, they do. The bottom line is, Julius was very aggressive to start the game, trying to get himself going, get to the free throw line if he can. D Rose started out great again. Obviously, they're going to focus a little bit more on D Rose. But bottom line is, there's not enough, R.J. Barrett. There's not enough Reggie Bullock. There's not enough other guys putting the ball in the basket to really take pressure off them. So they're just having a hard time scoring the basketball. Their defense, honestly, was pretty good until the third quarter, and then it just got away from them.
Yeah. It was interesting, something you and I talked about during the second half. The Hawks have the luxury of playing through Bogdanovich as the primary ball handler and point guard, and they can make Trae Young an off-the-ball, basically a 2-guard. The Knicks don't have those kinds of options in terms of playmakers and ball handlers.
Yeah, and I think that's really what we're seeing with this New York Knicks team is, great regular season, different in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And in the playoffs, I've said it a number of times, it's obviously going to come down to your defense. But offensively, do you have enough shot makers and do you have enough shot creators?
Right.
And right now, they're trying to play as much as they can through Julius Randle and Derrick Rose. and they're just putting too much of a crowd around Julius Randle. There's not enough shot makers around him, and then it's too predictable of an offense with Julius Randle having the basketball as much as he does. So they just need more shot creators to go alongside Derek and Julius because they can't punish him. And so until someone steps up, maybe Reggie Bullock back at home, you're seeing guys try and be more aggressive, but it's difficult in the playoffs when they can really load up on your main guy.
And it's a little bit of a conundrum for the Knicks because this is the way they've played all season long offensively. They've run so much through Julius Randle. It's tough for them to become a different team all of a sudden.
Yeah, he was one of the more ISO players this season, I think. His numbers are crazy. 24-plus points a game, double-double, high assists. Obviously, we won the most improved player. It wasn't an accident. But in the playoffs, you face the same team over and over. It is a game of adjustments. And to the Hawks' credit, they're doing a phenomenal job of crowding him. Capella's doing a great job of shadowing him wherever he goes. And then on the other side, they're just scoring the ball. I mean, the Hawks are really putting the ball in the basket.
Danilo Gallinari with 21 off the bench on 6 of 9 shooting. That's incredibly efficient. And you saw some of the grit, Knicks fans would probably say dirty moments from him as well. But he obviously gets it, having been around the league as long as he does. And there's a lot of value in having a veteran like that who can be as productive as he is and bring sort of that toughness, again, the Knicks fans are going to say dirtiness to the table.
No, Gallo's a pro. He's a pro. I mean, he was great in Italy, obviously. He's great with the Knicks when he got drafted, great in Denver when he's pretty much been good Clippers. Everywhere he's been, he adds value to your team. He's a stretch 4. He can play the 3. He knocks down big shots. I mean, timely, like today, 21 points off the bench. I take that from any guy off my bench. So he's one of those guys that has great poise to him. He is tough. He can play in that Garden environment, which is going to be rocking in Game 5. I wish we could be in the building for that one. But Gallo's a pro and handles himself accordingly.
Trae Young did not have a great shooting game from three-point range, just 4 of 14, but that means his teammates, if I'm doing the math correctly, were 11 of 25. You can't ask for much better.
And that's how the roster was constructed.
Yeah.
Kevin Huerter, Gallinari, Bogdanovich. Those were the guys they brought in to provide additional shooting, and you're seeing that. You're seeing these guys with the open shots that Trae is generating and creating. The pick and roll aspect of the game with Clint Capella and John Collins, they make that defense have to collapse, and these guys are making them pay. And that's the difference in this series right now is they're making them pay with the three-point shot, and New York isn't.
Also, the Hawks out-rebounded the Knicks by 9. I mean, you can't find a lot of fault with the way Atlanta played today.
No, I think they're playing with confidence. They obviously are having more willing passers and shot makers. And then defensively, they're executing the game plan, especially against Julius Randle.
Yeah, they're having fun. I mean, quite frankly, I was watching the game in the room back there. They're just having a good time. They love sharing the ball with each other. It gets contagious. When I pass you, you make a shot. You pass it back, I make a shot. Everybody wants to get involved with it. And that's the fun thing about sports. When things are going good, you get the vibe and everybody gets to feeling it and everybody feels hot. So I think they had 6 or 7 guys in double figures, a couple other guys close. And then at the same time is when they do have Bogdanovich bringing up, they still have Lou Will off the bench too. They got a lot of stuff over there.
Well, what does it mean for Trae to not have the ball in his hands constantly, not have that responsibility for significant stretches in the game in terms of his legs and rest and mentally and everything else to be a two-guard essentially?
Well, I think, it's still the same. He's still initiating their offense, and they have options to get it through different hands. You can play through Gallo at that stretch 4. He can get into some second side action with Kevin Huerter, with DeAndre Hunter, or with Bogdanovich, or Lou Williams, as you mentioned. But so much attention is focused on Trae and will continue to focus on Trae. When they move the ball from side to side, now your entire defense is shifting, and then it's just the open man is going to get the wide open shot, and that's what we saw today.
Yep. I believe we can hear from Trae Young immediately after the game with the Hawks now up 3-1. Good to be Trae Young here in the city of Atlanta these days. That pretty much sums up the way Knicks fans feel right now.
Yeah.
I'd say that's about right.
That's accurate.
You know what? Series is not over. That's the good news. More good news. I think the Knicks have set themselves up for the future really well by establishing credibility within the NBA. Tom Thibodeau has established a style there. Yep. They play a certain way. They kind of overachieved relative to the roster and made the 4 seed. That's going to pay off down the line because you guys know free agents, they pay attention. They know what's going on around the league.
It's still New York.
And it's New York, right?
It's an attractive free agent destination. They do have a ton of cap space. I think probably the most in the NBA going into this offseason. But I think more than anything, there's a culture there. And there's an identity in Julius Randle as a franchise type of player. Tom Thibodeau has really embraced that city. They've embraced him. And so moving forward, I think people have now erased that stigma of the last couple of years. It's been a struggle for New York, and they've overcome all of the perception of what New York Knicks basketball has looked like. People are excited. The fan base is excited. We'll see that in Game 5, but very positive momentum for that New York Knicks franchise.
And regardless of what happens the rest of this series, mission accomplished on that front.
Correct.
For the big picture New York Knicks. Hawks win it today, 3-1 lead. Let's hear from Coach Nate McMillan.
Hello, Coach McMillan.
How you doing?
Doing great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good.
All right, we will go ahead and begin. First question will come from Sarah Spencer.
Hey, Nate, just what was your message to the guys after this win and now taking a 3-1 lead in the series?
I thought we did our jobs and defended home court. I thought the guys responded. They played really all 48 minutes with a sense of urgency out there. Our defense picked up in the second half, did a good job of just making it tough for them to score and, trying to keep them in front. Offensively, I thought we had much better ball movement in that second half, making them work defensively. And we was able to, really get a rhythm on the offensive end of the floor.
How impressed were you with John today, despite having to get some stitches mid-game?
I mean, he's played well for us all season long. And certainly, he got into foul trouble in the last game or 2 games ago and, wasn't able to stay out on the floor. When he's out on the floor, it just helps us so much because he gives us that versatility to spread the floor as well as play inside and attack. And, tonight, again, defending for us, providing that scoring and rebounding. We need him out on the floor. Did a solid job tonight.
Jeff Schultz.
Nate, how important has it been, particularly in these last 2 games, that you've not only gotten into some nice shooting runs, but you've responded to the Knicks physically when the game sort of ratcheted up in that area?
Well, these guys are showing growth. I told them, really the playoffs started that second half up in New York, the game that we lost, because that team that came out the second half being physical was the team that we really expected in the first game. And, that's playoff basketball. We have to be able to bring that game to the floor which is playing with urgency, be able to play through that. It can't become a distraction to us. And I think these guys have shown growth where we are, taking some hits and some fouls, and we're keeping our heads and being able to get back to playing in the next play. And I think it's just showing growth from this young team.
And I know you're focused on your team, but when you guys have responded, have you sensed any frustration on the Knicks' part, particularly, like I said, when things get a little chippy?
Again, you're right, Jeff. I focus on our guys, in situations like that. There were a couple plays tonight where they had to go and review, and the focus was getting our guys back focused on finishing this game tonight.
Steve Hummer.
Yes, kind of following that up, do you anticipate, Nate, that this next game, with the Knicks even more desperate, it would be even more physical?
I think, as I told our guys, this game will be the hardest game of the series to close a team out. And, because we know they're going to come and they're going to fight. And, this will be the hardest game of the series. Yes, I expect it to be physical. I expect, both teams to come with urgency in this next game.
And on Bogey's performance, when you look at how this team has grown in the last month or so, how much do you attribute that to to the way Bogey's been playing?
He's a big part of it, but they all are, for me, really starting these playoffs is the first time